Hi, this is Dr. Cairns. Welcome to week 6 of Managing Teams in Conflict. It's hard to believe we're about to begin the final third of this class. So let's look at our roadmap, where we're going and how we're going to get there and what we've already accomplished. You've accomplished approximately 34% of the class grade, and there's 66% remaining. So make sure that you finish strong. I want to have a few comments regarding Let Bartlett Be Bartlett. And many of you picked out the quote, "I serve at the pleasure of the president." And that was actually an exciting part for me to see. I was a West Wing fan before I came to NBC. And I did not know that when I left NBC that I would receive a call from the special assistant to the office of the president and saying to me, "Would you be willing to serve at the pleasure of the president?" That was a question I can tell you is a sobering one, and one you can't take lightly, and it gets your attention. I answered in the affirmative, and I was pleased that I was given the opportunity to serve at the pleasure of the president. Now, this episode, you see a variety of different things. Is it an example of leading from behind? Is it a high-performing team that has aspects that aren't performing all that well? Or is it a team that needs to continue to identify itself and its goals moving forward? So I'm glad that you had an opportunity to engage with this questionnaire and to look at it rather subjectively, because now you're going to get an opportunity to look at it objectively as you will evaluate the various groups that you will be studying. Also, as we look at these 12 characteristics, and it's really given in a way that it looks like all of them are weighted the same, but are they? So as you go forward looking at your study, I encourage you to look behind each individual area. There are various questions to maybe see, are there other things taking place in this particular group? So that's some advice moving forward. But looking back, you did a creative job of looking at the various aspects, and I think you did a phenomenal job of identifying areas where the organization or the individuals as a group were strong and where they needed to make changes. And you see some adjustments made throughout this film that perhaps moved them into another area of improvement. So again, as you move forward, thank you for your creativity and engagement with each other as you studied this. It also kind of tees up for you this week looking at chapters 7 and 8 that deal with decision making. And so I'm highlighting here one of the areas that you will see in group decision making and problem solving, and that is the issue of information overload. It's something that all of us are used to and accustomed to. Obviously, with the advent of the internet, we have access to tons of information. There are also various places on the internet that are aggregating information for us. So they're processing lots of information and giving us the ability to look at that in an abbreviated fashion. However, I can tell you as one who receives a lot of different updates, there are things that come my way that still overload me. So what should I be thinking about, and how should I be handling that and processing it? So your text will give you some good ways to examine the impact of information overload on us. I want to play for you, though, a brief video that I think you will find interesting.
I don't know if you noticed it, but over the last 15 or 20 years, everything has sped up. So much information is now available to us, and it's all through these tiny screens that we carry with us everywhere. It almost begs the question, are we really present to the people and things that are happening around us when we're so married to our digital devices?
More than half of millennials say they check their phones first thing in the morning and right before bed. Half of millennials say that their gadgets actually get in the way of their relationships. There are a lot of aspects to a hyperlinked life, being always on and plugged in. Second is our growing dependency on the data that's provided through these devices. And finally, there's this appification of life. Basically what we mean is that there's now an app really for anything.
We need a rest period from all the information that we're given to literally take a Sabbath from technology.
Read less, know more with Frames.
So there you have it. We're all millennials to some degree, because attached to our hip is that iPhone or that smartphone or that other device that we may look at called an iPad or just the computer itself. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? Do you turn to Facebook? Do you turn to your email? Or do you turn to maybe a devotional or some other aspect? Anyway, I'm not making judgments, just talking about the information that we have. And it's one of the things that we should think about, because it does squeeze out other things in our life, so it impacts our own time management. It also can impact how we grow spiritually, and so as we think and process information. And so I like this verse that we find that Paul writes to the Philippians: "For I want you to understand what really matters most, so that you may live a life that's pure and blameless until Christ's return." And so I would say to you, be conscious of the impact of information and what you process and allow into your daily life. And do you squeeze things out, or should you be squeezing some things in? And so we'll also be looking at effective decision making and problem solving as it relates to gathering information and evaluating information. And so I have a picture here of miners mining for gold. And I like this because I like the metaphor of mining for information, that we need to be looking for those gold nuggets within information. We're going to have a lot of information to process, but within that, we're only going to really probably find one or two kernels of information that will be helpful to us. So we want to find those and make sure that that's a part of our information, as it will relate then to us considering and evaluating the data that we will process. Is it believable? Is it up to date? Are there connections that we should be looking for where data intersects? And then are we reflecting on the most relevant information? And do we have enough information? And when is enough enough? So these two go together, looking at information overload and information. And so again, this can impact how we grow spiritually. And so I've looked at how do we sort through the data and evaluate it according to being effective in that data analysis. And this is one of those areas where I think it's wise for us to ask for wisdom. And in the book of James, we find if any of us lacks wisdom, we can ask of God. So we have an example of that for us. And so as we close, looking at the headlines coming up in week 7, we'll have a forum discussion that will be a group activity. So take a sneak peek ahead. But don't pass through chapters 7 and 8 too quickly. These are some of my favorite chapters, and I think there'll be some that you will walk away with gaining some really great insights as you move forward to the teams that you will manage and the groups that you will manage, or the groups that you will be a part of. So remember, the virtual classroom never sleeps. If you have any questions concerning anything, please let me know, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Have a great week.